Daniel Carter woke up earlier than usual that morning, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. Today was the day he had been waiting for, the day he might finally break free from the cycle of small, exhausting jobs that barely paid enough to cover rent and groceries. For years, he had juggled work as a part-time mechanic, late-night cleaner, and weekend cashier, doing whatever it took to raise his little girl, Lily, after his wife passed away. But this morning felt different. He had been granted an interview for a management position at Harper & Company, a company that was not only prestigious but known for its stability and growth. It was the kind of job that could change his and Lily's future, and he had been preparing for weeks, practicing interview questions in front of the bathroom mirror while Lily giggled at him, ironing his old suit until it looked as presentable as possible, and carefully organizing his resume and certificates in a worn leather folder. The suit was slightly too tight at the shoulders and the shoes were scuffed despite his best efforts to polish them, but Daniel wore them proudly. As he adjusted his tie, Lily peeked around the corner with sleepy eyes, her hair a tangled mess, and whispered, "Daddy, you look like a superhero today." Her innocent words filled him with strength, reminding him why this opportunity mattered so much. After dropping her off at school with a kiss on the forehead and a promise that he would tell her all about how the interview went, Daniel hurried toward the bus stop, clutching his folder as though it contained his whole life. The streets were alive with the morning rush, people weaving through traffic, taxis honking impatiently, and the sun peeking out over the city skyline. Daniel checked his watch repeatedly, ensuring he had enough time to arrive early, knowing punctuality was crucial. He rehearsed his introduction silently, imagining the panel of interviewers asking him about leadership, problem-solving, and his experience with logistics. Every step carried both hope and fear, hope that this would finally be the break he needed, and fear that somehow fate would snatch it away. Just as he crossed a quieter street, a sound caught his attention, the distressed sputter of a car engine, followed by a sharp hiss of steam. Turning his head, he saw a woman in her mid-30s standing beside her car, smoke rising from the hood as she tried, in vain, to wave someone down. Dozens of people walked past, too busy to care, their eyes fixed on their phones or the sidewalks ahead. For a moment, Daniel's heart tightened. He couldn't afford to stop, not today. Every second counted, and he knew missing this interview would mean losing everything he had been working toward. Yet, as he stood frozen between choice and consequence, his gaze fell to the photo of Lily tucked inside his wallet. Her smile seemed to whisper the lessons he had tried so hard to teach her. That kindness mattered, that they should always help when they could. With a heavy sigh, Daniel shoved the folder under his arm and jogged over to the car. "Looks like you could use a hand," he said, rolling up his sleeves without waiting for her to answer. The woman's relief was immediate, her eyes softening as she nodded gratefully. Within minutes, Daniel leaned over the smoking engine, his hands working with the instinct of a man who had once spent countless nights fixing old cars just to scrape together extra money. Time was slipping through his fingers, but he forced himself not to glance at his watch. At last, the engine coughed back to life, the smoke fading away, and the woman's face lit up with gratitude. Daniel wiped his hands on his shirt, which was now stained with grease, and gave her a tired smile. "You're good to go now." She thanked him repeatedly, her voice warm with sincerity, but Daniel only shrugged, saying, "My daughter always tells me to help people when I can. That's more important." As he walked away, his shoulders slumped, the weight of missed opportunity already pressing down on him. Behind him, the woman watched, unaware that the man who had just sacrificed his dream interview for her was about to change her life, and she his, in ways neither of them could imagine. The rejection letter arrived 2 days later, crisp and formal, thanking Daniel for his application but informing him that the position had been filled. He read the words 3 times, though his heart had already understood the truth after he walked away from that car on the day of the interview. Sitting at his small kitchen table, the letter trembling in his hands, Daniel felt the crushing weight of disappointment settle in his chest. Around him, the tiny apartment he shared with Lily seemed quieter than usual, the hum of the old refrigerator echoing like a reminder of all the bills stacked in the corner. He tried to push the worry down, reminding himself that despair wouldn't feed his daughter, so he tucked the letter away and put on a brave smile when Lily came home from school. "How was the interview, Daddy?" she asked eagerly, her bright eyes searching his face for good news. Daniel hesitated, then knelt down and stroked her hair. "It didn't go the way I hoped, sweetheart, but don't you worry. I'll find another chance." Lily, with the kind of innocent wisdom only a child could possess, hugged him tightly and whispered, "I know you will, Daddy. You always say helping people comes back to us." Her faith in him was both comforting and heartbreaking, for Daniel felt far from the hero she believed him to be. That night, after she had fallen asleep clutching her worn teddy bear, Daniel sat once more at the kitchen table, bills spread before him like an endless storm. He scribbled numbers on scrap paper, trying to stretch his meager income from his late-night shifts at the diner, but the sums never seemed to work out. The weariness of working 2 jobs gnawed at him, yet he refused to let Lily see the exhaustion etched into his face. Across town, Olivia Harper sat in her corner office, staring out at the glittering skyline while the memory of that morning, the man with the kind eyes and grease-stained shirt, lingered in her mind. She hadn't stopped thinking about him since he fixed her car, not because of the act itself, but because of the quiet sacrifice he had made. He never asked for anything in return, never hinted at his own struggles, and walked away as though helping her was the most natural thing in the world. She had later discovered, through a chance conversation with her assistant, that a candidate had missed their interview that very morning, and her instincts told her it had been him. Something about that possibility gnawed at her, stirring a curiosity and respect she rarely felt for anyone outside her business circle. She instructed her assistant to discreetly find out who he was, though with only the faintest details, it was no easy task. Meanwhile, Daniel continued working long hours at the diner, returning home after midnight to find Lily sometimes waiting by the window, her head nodding sleepily before she ran into his arms. "I stayed awake for you, Daddy," she would whisper, and his heart would ache with both pride and guilt. He promised her better days were ahead, though he didn't know how. Unbeknownst to him, the very woman whose car he had fixed was searching for him, her determination fueled by more than gratitude, by the unshakable sense that his story was far from ordinary, and that perhaps his missed chance was not the end but the beginning of something far greater. A week later, Daniel was wiping down tables at the diner where he worked the late shift, his body aching from hours on his feet, when the bell over the door jingled and a familiar face walked in. At first, he almost didn't recognize her without the broken-down car and the smoke rising from the hood, but then her eyes caught his, and recognition flickered between them, Olivia, the woman he had helped that morning when everything had gone wrong. She was dressed simply, a soft blazer over a cream blouse, but there was an unmistakable presence about her, something steady and commanding that made the air in the diner seem to shift. Daniel quickly looked away, embarrassed by his stained apron and tired posture, but Olivia walked directly to him, her steps confident. "You," she said warmly, her smile carrying both gratitude and something more. "You're the man who fixed my car." Daniel gave a half-smile and shrugged, trying to downplay the memory. "That was nothing," he muttered. "Just glad I could help." But Olivia wasn't satisfied with that answer. She wanted to know who he was, what he did, and why someone so capable looked as though life had been relentlessly unfair. She asked questions gently, but directly, and though Daniel tried to keep his responses brief, he found himself opening up more than he intended. He told her about Lily, about working long shifts, and about always trying to set a good example for his daughter, though he avoided mentioning the interview he had missed. Olivia listened intently, her curiosity deepening with each word, and finally she decided the time had come to reveal what she had kept from him. She leaned forward slightly, her voice softer but steady. "I think there's something you should know," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "I'm Olivia Harper, CEO of Harper & Company, the company you were scheduled to interview with last week." For a moment, the clatter of dishes and chatter of customers faded into silence for Daniel, his mind racing with disbelief. The tray he held nearly slipped from his grasp as the realization hit him. This woman wasn't just someone he had helped on the street, she was the very person who could have decided his future. His face flushed with embarrassment, and he swallowed hard, finally admitting, I was supposed to be there. But I made a choice, and I guess it cost me my chance. His voice was quiet, carrying both regret and resignation, but Olivia shook her head gently, her eyes softening. It didn't cost you anything, Daniel. In fact, it showed me exactly the kind of man you are, the kind of man who puts others first, even when it costs him. That's rare. She stood then, placing a card on the table. Come to my office tomorrow morning. No interview this time, just a conversation. I think there's more we need to discuss. With that, she left as swiftly as she had come, leaving Daniel standing stunned, the card burning like a lifeline in his hand. That night, as he lay awake with Lily curled up beside him, her tiny hand resting on his chest, he allowed himself a fragile hope he hadn't felt in years, that maybe, just maybe, the future was about to change. The following morning, Daniel stood outside the towering glass building of Harper & Company, clutching the business card Olivia had given him as though it were a key to another world. His stomach churned with nerves, his old suit freshly pressed once more though the faint grease stains from his work days still lingered. He thought of Lily's bright face as she had wished him good luck at the school gates, her words echoing in his mind, "You can do it, Daddy." Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the heavy doors and entered, feeling small beneath the gleaming marble lobby and the fast-moving professionals who seemed to belong in a world far removed from his own. But when Olivia appeared to greet him personally, dressed with effortless elegance and a smile that carried both warmth and authority, Daniel felt a strange sense of calm. She led him through the sleek corridors into a boardroom, where instead of a panel of interviewers, a single folder sat waiting on the table. "Daniel," she began, her tone steady, "I don't want to talk about your resume today. I already know the kind of man you are. I saw it when you gave up your own future to help a stranger without hesitation. That's the kind of leader I want in this company, someone who understands people come first." Daniel blinked, struggling to process her words, and when she slid the folder toward him, he opened it to find not another application form but an employment contract offering him the very position he had thought lost forever. His throat tightened, his hands trembling as he tried to find words, but all that came out was a choked, "I don't know what to say." Olivia smiled gently. "Just say yes." That afternoon, Daniel walked out of the building a changed man, the weight of years of struggle suddenly lighter. For the first time in so long, he allowed himself to imagine a future where he and Lily didn't have to scrape by, where she could have the childhood she deserved, and where he could hold his head high as more than just a survivor, he could finally be a provider. In the weeks that followed, Daniel settled into his new role, proving every day that Olivia's faith in him had not been misplaced. His dedication, humility, and natural leadership quickly earned the respect of his colleagues, while at home, Lily basked in the joy of their new life together. They moved into a slightly bigger apartment with sunlight streaming through the windows, and Daniel could finally tuck her in at night without the exhaustion of double shifts weighing him down. Olivia often stopped by his office to check on him, their conversations growing from professional updates to moments of genuine friendship, each silently aware that fate had woven their paths together for a reason. One evening, as Daniel carried Lily home from the park, she rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Daddy, I told you helping people would come back to us." Daniel's eyes stung as he kissed the top of her head and replied softly, "You were right, sweetheart. Sometimes the best opportunities come when you least expect them." And as the city lights flickered around them, Daniel knew that a single act of kindness had not only changed his life but secured a brighter future for the little girl who had always been his greatest reason to keep going.